powerful ways to honor Gay Pride Month is by inspiring social change through storytelling. That's the goal of the community-inspired, community-created production of the Coming Out Monologues. Think social activism through theater. And joining us with the details on this year's production, we welcome director Kyle Sieg, and one of the cast members from the show, Tiffany Rose. Welcome, you guys.
Thank you.
Very excited to have you.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us. How did both of you get involved with the Coming Out Monologues?
So I actually got involved 3 years ago as a cast member. I attended the year before and loved it, and loved the people. And you can kind of see the camaraderie on stage between the cast members as well. Even though they're on stage for just the monologues, you can sort of you feel the vibe, right? And so I knew I wanted to tell my story, so I did that the following year. And then I told a separate story the next year, and then this year I'm directing.
So when you're telling these stories, is it you're always telling your own, or are you sharing someone else's story as well?
So generally, cast members tell their own stories, but we also understand that this is so hard. Like, it's so hard to tell your story and sort of live your truth, right? So if a cast member says, hey, I have this great story, but I don't want to be the one to tell it, I don't know if I'm ready for that yet, we will actually have people work with them to craft their story, and then we'll have people on stage, sort of local actors or community actors, perform it for them on their behalf.
You know, I want to ask a question. Pardon me, Angelia. I want to ask a question, something you just said, and forgive me, I don't know, so I'm going to ask. When you said it's hard to tell your story, help me understand why. Why is it so hard? I would imagine it's your life. You tell the story, either they like it or they don't. It is what it is. But obviously I'm wrong because it's hard, and I understand that, but I don't understand why it would be hard to for someone.
Sure, I think it really comes down to society, you know, and I think it comes down to how we're raised and where we're raised, you know. For me personally, it was difficult because I was raised in a strongly conservative Christian environment that, you know, I was taught from day one that really what I was a sin and I'm going to hell for it, right? And I had a wonderful family that didn't actually hammer that home, and my process was actually so much easier than so many folks, and they're wonderful, and I lucked out. But even still, being in that environment, you know, and being told that what you feel so innately within yourself is in itself wrong, you know, it's tough. And I lucked out, and there's so many others in the community who didn't, and who have much more difficult stories to tell, and it's theirs to tell. And to stand on a stage in front of an audience of 300 people and to tell that story, for many of them it's cathartic, but it's also incredibly, incredibly difficult.
For those that are unfamiliar with the Coming Out Monologues, though, I mean, what is the purpose? Is the purpose for you just to, like you said, just let it be known, just to be able to release energy on your own to say your story? Or is it maybe to have their family members come into the audience so that maybe they hear it for the first time? What is the reason behind most, or, you know, some of the people that actually do the Coming Out Monologues?
Sure, and I think Tiffany could speak to why she did it as well, but I would just say sort of overarching thing would be, it's really multifaceted, right? So for me, I wanted to share my story, but I also felt it important for other people to hear my story. Especially last year, I focused more on Christianity and why I felt as a Christian I was, you know, not sinning by merely existing, or by being in a committed monogamous relationship. And so I think some people want that. Some people want to change hearts and minds, and that's really what Coming Out Monologues is all about. But a byproduct of that is this release, this sense of release that people on stage get from speaking their truth. Some people invite their family. Most people probably invite their family. Some don't want their family there because it's just too tough.
Too much. What about you, Tiffany?
Well, for me, I think it's all about acceptance. You know, we're all people. You know, it doesn't matter what color we are. It doesn't matter what our sexuality is. We're all human beings. You know, and if we can just create awareness so that we can develop more respect for each other, you know, as a community, then I think not only do we learn, but we gain courage in learning as well.
What made you want to get involved in Coming Out? Are you telling your own story, or are you telling someone else's?
I'm actually telling my own story. My own story, and how I got involved with it is that I went to the show last year, so I actually saw Kyle perform last year, and I said, oh my goodness, this is such a great production, I need to be a part of it. I didn't know how I was going to be a part of it at the time, but I said, I'm going to do it. So here I am.
Is this going to be the first time that you're telling your story?
Very first time.
Oh, good for you.
Ever.
What is it like crafting it? Because I'm sure like the production, like the crew helps kind of write your story, but what is that process like from you know, the very emotional beginning of even starting it to then putting it on stage?
You know, when you try to put your thoughts into words, think of putting all your emotion into words. You're writing your own story. And, you know, stories you go through editing, you go through, I'm going to take this out, or I really don't want to share this, you know, but then it becomes personal. And as you go through the process, as for me, I was like, oh my goodness, this is so emotional, but it's so freeing at the same time.
Would you say it's therapeutic?
Yes,
Wow.
very therapeutic. And for me, it is therapeutic because it's part of accepting myself too, because I had a hard time with that, you know, growing up. So.
Well, we are lucky enough that you agreed to give us a little taste of the monologue.
I'm going to share.
Go for it, Tiffany,
Share for
right into there.
Do it, T.
All right. After serving in the military, having 2 unsuccessful marriages, and hitting rock bottom, I decided to move to Florida so that I could begin to live a life of my own. As I began to take the time to learn who I was, I found I still struggled with the fact that I'm attracted to women. I felt I wasn't a true lesbian because, you know, I never really had a relationship with a woman. Plus, I had been with men. This was a continuous battle for me. I suffered many years of deep depression, and I even contemplated suicide. Over time, and with numerous therapy sessions, I finally came to the conclusion that it was time to make some positive changes. I wanted to have a relationship with a woman, not just sleeping with them in secret anymore. But unfortunately, dating didn't go well for me at all. Besides trying to date in today's society with all the online match this and Tinder that, I still hadn't come out to my family. So I asked myself, I said, Tiffany, don't you want a relationship that you don't have to lie about or hide? I told myself, yes, I do. So I knew what had to be done.
Wow.
Wow.
Powerful.
How brave of you. You just did that on TV, girl.
I did.
Good job, Tiffany.
I
Wow,
did.
what a story.
It is. It gets deeper. And just to give you a little bit of background, my mother is a minister and she's a teacher.
Oh, yeah.
So I come from a very religious family.
Yeah.
So my story encompasses all that, you know.
I mean, I'm so glad that you guys are telling.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that Coming Out Monologues is a regular thing. Like we were talking earlier during the commercial break, it's across college campuses also.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a really important age for people to feel like they can finally be themselves. So,
It really is.
Thank you.
And just real quick to your point about storytelling, we do have story coaches as well. Yeah. So some folks write their own stories, and then story coaches can come in and sort of clean things up for production in conjunction with the storytellers to make it a compelling story, but keep that truth there.
Of course. So you can come and watch it, you know, this time, and then maybe next year, like Tiffany, you'll feel a little inspired to tell your own story and share it. Well, thank you so much for coming.
You're
Appreciate
welcome. Thank you for
sharing
having
some
us.
things. That was amazing.
Appreciate it.
And if you would like to see the Coming Out Monologues, there are performances this Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. and Saturday at 1 p.m. at the WJCT studios. For tickets and more information, visit com2017.eventbrite.com. And after the break, a story that takes most of us back to our childhood, the Tony Award-winning Broadway musical Cinderella is coming to Jacksonville. Find out where you can see it and how you can win some tickets to the show. Stay with us.
Jeopardy has your daily serving